Hi, everyone, and welcome to Demand 2023, and thanks for joining my session. My name is Lauren Meyer, Chief Marketing Officer for an ESP called Socket Labs. I've traditionally been on the sender side working for ESPs, consulting customers on how to resolve their deliverability issues and improve their performance, and sending emails myself as a marketer, which is why I'm here today to impart my knowledge on how we need to bring triggered and transactional email back into the marketer's purview. So let's set the scene. You're a marketer working for a tech company, big surprise. Sales projections are at least one quarter behind what's been projected. Everybody's scrambling for a way to make up that missing revenue, and they're looking to you for answers, for results. Making matters worse, you've been in this position for a few years now. You've already brainstormed and customer interviewed and turned over every marketing stone within your purview, more than once, in fact, looking for new ways to attract new customers, retain more existing customers, or increase the lifetime value of email recipients, helping your company grow that ever so important monthly recurring revenue, annual recurring revenue. But resources are scarce. Management is tightening the screws, not loosening them. But what is a marketer to do? Well, during this session, we'll be talking about an often overlooked way for you to spark revenue for your company, in most cases with the very same tools, methods, processes your company is already using to send some types of email. And that is how to take advantage of triggered and transactional email streams to foster customer interactions, enhance brand loyalty, and boost your deliverability all at the same time. When compared with other types of emails, the engagement rates of triggered emails are just awesome. More than double the open rate of a newsletter, more than triple the click-through rate. And this level of engagement makes it very clearly visible to mailbox providers that their users find your mail interesting enough to engage with. So your future deliverability will thank you, right along with those folks who are watching revenue so closely within your company. Now, before you start getting anxious, note that this is not something that you missed. This is not the stone that you didn't uncover. This tactic is often overlooked because of the fact that triggered emails take time to set up because they're attached to data. So they typically fall outside the marketer's purview, living somewhere in a hard-coded drawer assigned to your engineering team. And they only open that drawer when something is broken or when there's a critical change needed related to, payment processing or security vulnerabilities, something big. And as much as we might disagree, changes to hard-coded emails, to tweak messaging or update branding is not a priority for engineering. Never has been, never will. Okay, all right. Maybe I'm dramatizing that a little bit, or maybe I'm not. You can tell me, right? All joking aside, hopefully your situation is nowhere near that dire. And if you need to make a change, there's at least like a slow-moving backlog that you can add your request to, knowing that eventually it's going to be taken care of. But while you're waiting, your company may be leaving money on the table. So let's talk about the different types of triggered emails that you can send. These kinds of emails are activated by actions that users take on your site. This could be anything from bouncing directly off of your homepage to completing a purchase on your site, and even visiting many different product pages across different categories. Unlike batched marketing emails sent to your entire list, triggered emails are much closer to a one-to-one communication between your brand and your customers, or I guess the folks you would like to one day call customers. They can be configured for multiple use cases to save you time and help you scale your marketing efforts without increasing your workload beyond that initial setup. Super helpful, particularly if your team is a little bit smaller today than it might have been in the past. There are two main types. The first is transactional triggered emails. These are generally considered to be one-way communications. They provide critical information or confirmation about a transaction or an account update. And legally speaking, an unsubscribe link is actually not required. Neither is permission prior to you hitting send. However, the primary purpose of these emails must be very clear and very much related to the explicit action that's been taken by the recipient. Transactional triggered emails are often time sensitive, with recipients expecting to receive them or perhaps even waiting a little bit impatiently for them to arrive. So for example, we've got password resets and access codes, which can cause a lot of frustration if they're not received super quickly. I don't know about you, but those couple of seconds or sometimes minutes between when you trigger that password reset email to be sent and when the email actually arrives in your inbox can feel like ages when you need to get something done. And if this happens when you're using a new product or service. It could be the difference between somebody becoming a customer or maybe seeking out one of your competitors if they're not too deep into your product yet. So yeah, time sensitive indeed. I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in this. Good transactional triggered emails are informative. In this case, they are confirming what you've ordered, where it's been delivered to, and when, right? And good triggered emails set expectations about what's going to happen next. This is a fantastic example by ProFlowers, helping their buyers understand what will happen when they order flowers. And considering those are typically going to their special person for a specific occasion or a reason, it's normally very important for the right flowers to be delivered to the right person on the right date. And they set those expectations superbly well here, giving you links to even go check on the status. Another example of a triggered transactional type of email is confirmation emails. In some cases, people might just be eager to get that confirmation and just know that the thing is done, such as maybe when you're experiencing that feeling after you filed your tax returns through a service like TurboTax. Feels good, right? You don't want to think about that till next year, but you're happy to know that it's done. Other times, people might want access to an item that they purchased, as in the case with audiobooks that you could listen to with a service like Audible. Either way, recipients are often eagerly awaiting those messages, which is why they have an average open rate of around 60%. I've sometimes seen these go as high as 80%, which is awesome. But good transactional triggered emails are not just informative. By adding in personalization that's based off of their user profile or the item that they've just shown you interest in, transactional emails can also help you encourage adoption and potentially future purchases of your product or your service. If we take a closer look at the example from Audible, note how this purchase confirmation for an audiobook is mainly focused on confirming the order and encouraging the recipient to start listening, but there's a personalized section at the bottom offering up other titles they might enjoy listening to as well. Adding in this level of personalization does require some work, and a lot of you watching this right now probably know this a lot better than I do. And you can imagine how much indexing might be involved for a company like Audible with how many titles they've got. But once it's done, it provides such a great experience for your customers, enabling them to very easily become recurring customers, perhaps one day even loyal fans who advocate on behalf of your brand. And we all know the power of word of mouth in marketing. This tactic is just one more brick in that golden path to getting it. So while keeping the sole purpose of the email about the audiobook is really important, you can do a couple of other things in there as well. So now let's talk about marketing types of triggered emails, which can be just as powerful. These are promotional in nature. They're based on an action a user takes that isn't explicitly sales related, not exactly triggered by a person asking for an email. So these are welcome emails, onboarding flows, low stock or maybe back in stock notifications, cart and product abandonment emails as well. And these meet the goal of true personalization because they're based on the user and the user's actions rather than, one of us marketers' best guesses on what email might be right for them at any given moment. We're just guessing truly, right? Recipients are not waiting for these, despite what us marketers might want to believe. And an unsubscribe link and physical address for opt-out are always required for these marketing types of emails. One example of a triggered marketing email is something sent post-purchase. People are all jazzed up about that thing they just bought in most cases, so why not take advantage of that by sending them a discount on their next order with super relevant suggestions based on what they bought last time or based on your top sellers. You decide. It's really up to you with these triggers. The point is keep them focused on your brand while those endorphins are all flowing, right? That's wonderful. And speaking of endorphins, triggered emails can be used to capitalize on a recent recipient action, such as a browse or a cart abandonment. We all know how much satisfaction can come just from putting something in your cart, and those emails that you get are really tempting, right? The idea here is you can retarget a visitor who left your website with an email highlighting perks of the product that they were just browsing. Make it a little bit more interesting for them. They want to purchase that, right? And you can base your suggestions on their previous shopping and their on-site behaviors so that it's super relevant and personalized. Beautiful. One study by Omnisend actually found that a browse abandonment email can generate a 124% increase in open rates versus a typical marketing email. And according to that study conducted back in 2020, these kinds of emails maintained a 17% conversion rate, and they were responsible for about 2% of all email orders. So they're helping with your revenue targets a bit, as well as helping keep your brand and your products top of mind with your email recipients. Triggered emails can also help you create a really powerful onboarding experience. Here's an example from Trello, introducing new users who've just signed up to a handful of key features that will help them get started quickly and successfully, leading to higher product adoption, a better user experience, and that oh so amazing word of mouth. You can even make sure that you're highlighting the best features of your product so that they're more likely to adopt those. And speaking of adoption, which triggered email with excuse me, speaking of adoption, with triggered email sequences in place, you don't have to worry about trying to re-engage folks who initially showed interest, but then kind of trailed off since, right? Here's an example where Zapier sends emails to users who signed up for a trial, but have yet to convert to a paid account. So they start messaging as the trial is about to expire. In this case, they provide multiple opportunities for the recipient to upgrade to a paid plan across multiple emails. And then they follow up after the trial has ended as well. You can set up triggers to send to users who have or who haven't taken certain actions with your product, all without having to pay close attention to who's done what and when you need to send them follow-up emails manually, because we all know that you're probably not getting around to that with everything else that's on your plate. If you do get around to it, it's not an immediate, right? You've lost that peak attention that you had previously. Lastly, you can use triggered emails to celebrate a special event in people's lives, such as a birthday or an anniversary. I love this example from Nintendo. It's very on brand with the whole Mario Party theme. It offers a discount, and it's got like this mystery birthday present box that, again, feels very on brand for Mario and for Nintendo. And then they offer another giveaway, a birthday wallpaper that will keep Nintendo nice and close to the top of mind for anybody who uses it beyond their actual birthday, right? It's right there on the screen. According to a study that's been done by OmniSend, the one I mentioned before, birthday and anniversary emails can generate 45% open rates, 12% click rates, and a 3% in conversion rate. Not bad for birthday and anniversary emails, right? Definitely worth sending to help reinforce your brand experience and remind them that you exist if they've forgotten. Give them a little bit of surprise and delight out of nowhere, and maybe even get them engaging with your brand more regularly. The simplest way to describe a triggered email is the right message sent to the right person at the right time. Cliche, I know, trust me, I know, but it's absolutely true. Triggered email is associated with some kind of action recipients have taken recently. It's event triggered, it's often urgent, time sensitive, it's relevant, and allows you to catch people at a time when their attention is just oh so incredibly high. So let's talk about some strategies for success with triggered email and how you can make this part of your own company's marketing efforts. Well, for starters, you need to understand if triggered email is even right for your company in the first place. And you do that by having conversations internally, gathering information to align your email goals with the business. So some questions and facts you want to gather here are, what's the company trying to achieve this month, this quarter, this year? Is that new customer acquisition? Is it retention and growth? Is it a little bit of everything? And how does your company's email program help to achieve those goals? Are those super aligned? You'll also need to figure out what your company's risk tolerance is when it comes to email. How big of a part does your email program play in the company's overall success? How much revenue is expected from this channel already? Because you don't want to mess that up. You also want to find out, who does the business consider to be their VIP email recipients, and how important is it to minimize the risks of that small subset of customers or recipients, to make sure that those emails are always going to the inbox, right? How can you ensure that other emails that you're sending don't impact that really important subset of people? And then what key primary indicators are you going to, or what key performance indicators will you use to determine success? And are those aligned with the business? And when there's a problem with your metrics in some way or another, how seriously should you take it before deciding to adjust your strategy, right? You got to cut and run at some point if there's a problem. And I know this feels like a lot. There's so many words on the screen, but it should be possible to gather all of this information super quickly simply by having a conversation or a few conversations internally between your email team, the head of your department, and representatives from your leadership team who are making these decisions on behalf of the company's initiatives. You don't want to move forward with anything else that I'm about to say until you hash this part out. You want to set expectations on their side and also on yours. Get aligned with the business to make maximum impact, then move forward. All right, so now that you've got your directives from the powers that be within your company, you'll want to start to kind of dig deeper into that fact-finding mode and get really tactical here. You're going to want to take an inventory of all the emails that your company is sending. So some of the questions that you're going to want to answer here are, what emails does my company send to recipients, right? Are those marketing, transactional? Are they promotional or triggered emails? Are they support communication, sales workflows, whatever you got? What are the triggers for each of these different mail streams? And how are those emails being sent? Is it from some internal system that you've got? Is it through a CRM or an email service provider? Is it a sales enablement tool? You've got to figure out where that source is. And then also figure out, are these automated or are they manual? You got to also figure out which team or person is going to be managing each of these mail streams, who's going to be in charge of making those necessary changes. So you kind of want to have this sort of grid that's got all this information. And then also you need to figure out, are those changes hard coded, or is that something that's going to be able to change decently easily by the marketing team as needed? You need to know whether the emails being sent to your company are still relevant, accurate, helpful to the recipient in some way, and are they on brand, right? You want to figure out if they even still need to be sent in the first place. I would suggest heading straight to your development or your IT team as a good start. They can likely run a query to help you identify pretty quickly all the different mail streams that are being sent through your platform. But from there, you do need to dig deeper to ensure you're taking inventory of all the email streams that are being sent across your brand. So do consider all those different departments and the emails that are being sent, not just by marketing and by sales, but also notifications by IT or development or product, communications coming through support or customer success, anything that might be triggered versus manual and sent to just one person. Figure that out and gather as many facts as you can in this phase. Anything that you think is going to be helpful or relevant, obviously within reason. You don't want to be spending a month on this, but you can always decide later what facts are relevant to your planning and what's not once it's together. So it's easier to just do this now while your mind's already in it. And then once you've got that plan, all that information together, it's time to create the ultimate plan, right? Here you want to consider what new email streams you'd like to introduce and how those are going to be triggered and based off of what data. You want to think about what email streams are within your control and will be updated and how you're going to do that. And then you need to figure out what mail streams are managed by other teams, but that you'd like to take ownership of. Plan out what you think the path is for making that happen. What does that transition look like? What's the workload going to be to manage it once that stuff is in your purview versus in other teams? Next, you're going to want to consider what email streams do other teams manage that you'd like to get to update with their help. What's the expected scope of work for them and for you? And what's the level of priority on your side versus on theirs? What's the roadmap look like? With all of this in mind, you need to figure out, what is that anticipated timeline for getting new triggered emails created or updating those existing ones. Then lastly, what's going to be your pitch to get this project prioritized within your business? Pull feedback that you gathered from your initial exercise of alignment between the business and your email streams, and then work with your team, your manager, and anybody else who's on board with this project to kind of tighten up that pitch, but keep it high level when you're going to your leadership team. You want to talk about what you're doing, why you want to do it, and essentially what's the scope of work for everybody who's involved. And then what's the return that the business can expect? Why should they even consider spending time and resources on this in the first place? Well, for one, you could share that a national client email report conducted by the Direct Marketing Association in UK found that in North America, triggered emails delivered around a 75% higher open rate and a 115% higher click rate than standard, kind of business as usual emails. What this means is that automated emails that are sent in conjunction with an event trigger, like a click or an abandoned cart, tend to convert better than other emails. So lean into that. Find the angle that's going to lead to those higher conversions within your business. And if it makes your business money, realize that it's going to work with your leadership team. That's a message that they love to hear. Yet, I would say, many email marketers, particularly those in retail, still haven't figured out how to drive real revenue growth when they're using these triggered emails. And much of this is because they're lacking one key ingredient, which is the ability to identify these, right? They don't have the data they need to send triggered emails that resonate. Instead, they're sending bland, contextless, boring messages that aren't leveraging that intent-heavy action that people are taking with their brand, the one that's really going to help with those conversions. Those aren't really going to help, and they're not going to win over your leadership team. So if you know who your visitors are, what they're doing, where they're going, and what they want, you can trigger relevant emails based on their behavior. So you've got to start looking into your data and putting it to work. Simply put, first-party data is the engine that drives triggered email success. Each of these actions you see on screen tell you specific information about how likely your prospect is to convert. And with this information, you can power triggered email because it's what allows you to personalize that content within each and every email that you're sending to each person that you're sending when they come to your site. But most data, unfortunately, just kind of sits in a warehouse or a desk drawer somewhere that's collecting dust. So you've got to put that to work. When starting your first triggered email campaigns, make sure they're powered by your first party data. So with an email, this could look like your engagement data within your ESP, right? Your opens, clicks, unsubscribes, complaints, replies. Not everybody who's managing the email part of the business has access to massive amounts of subscriber data, the stuff that's on the right. But the more you have, the more creative and personalized you can get with your triggered emails. So even if it's a little bit painful to get these data points, try just one time, just do it. You can do it. So some of the data points that you want to consider applying to your triggers might be demographics, purchase history, website activity, mobile app data, sales interactions or support calls, customer feedback programs, or just simply their interests and behaviors. Maybe you've got some progressive profiling in place, so you know a couple things about them. Once you've figured out which triggers you'd like to put in place or update, it's time to circle back with your internal teams to relay that plan to all of your relevant stakeholders. Make sure that they are on board, right? Include everybody who's going to be involved with the technology and the data that's needed for these triggers. The folks that are involved in the email creation and implementation process, the day-to-day monitoring, and of course, you want to get that sign off from a sponsor on the leadership team to ensure that the strategy fits in with the larger business objectives. Once your attack teams are aligned and in agreement, you go ahead and set it up, right? We unfortunately do not have time to get into this part of the process today. It's a whole other topic, but I'm confident that you or the folks that you work with have the experience or the curiosity to figure this out. So bring them into this process early, get them excited about it, make them your partner in your triggered email success. My next recommendation for success is to optimize your triggered emails for engagement. Remember, marketing is a multi-channel effort, so you've got to think outside of the email box here to ensure that every touch point with your brand feels pretty cohesive. So get creative with how you can drive engagement with your audience. Do a lot of testing and monitor your performance regularly to see what's working and what's not. Then adjust those trigger sequences accordingly to really optimize those. You want to respect your email recipients and the reactions that they're having to your emails. Every part of the email process matters, right? The deliveries, the opens, clicks, conversions, especially. So don't try to trick them into taking actions that they simply aren't. So imagine here if you're getting people to open your emails so that you can boost your open rates, because that's your KPI in marketing. But then they open that email and they're marking it as spam right after. That's not going to go well for your deliverability. And it's not going to make your company any money. So nobody's going to be impressed with that high open rate except for you. All right. So one quick word of caution about optimizing for engagement. Don't get trigger happy here, please. You don't want to piss people off. At the top of the hour, I mentioned how powerful triggered email can be for your email program. Your open rates could double, your click-through rates could triple. But note how that unsubscribe and spam rate on trigger campaigns is higher as well. The spam rate has doubled. The unsubscribe rate has just about quadrupled. So from a deliverability perspective, I want to caution you that these rates are about as high as I would recommend you let yourself go. Anything higher within those spam complaint rates could start to trigger alarms with the mailbox provider, since spam complaints in particular are reports that are coming directly from your recipients, from their users, saying that they don't want to receive mail from you anymore. No clearer signal, really. So when you start to see that these elevated spam complaints are kind of beyond your norm or beyond what you're seeing on screen here, I want you to dig into the email address collection sources, the segmentation, and the actual content that's being sent. You want to try to understand why they're reacting more negatively to this mail stream than others, and see if you can lower it to a place that's a little bit more healthy for your inbox placement. Which brings me to the last recommendation I have to share with you today. Once those triggers are set, don't you dare forget to check in on them. Email is not set and forget, even when it comes to triggers. Triggered emails give you all of the scale to send timely and relevant emails to your customers. And the most beautiful part here is these triggered events are predefined. So when a user meets the conditions, they receive a triggered email without human intervention. Yay, we did it, right? While this means that you're kind of off the hook on hitting send after that initial setup of the trigger, you really should not set and forget these completely, because if you're catching folks at that right time with a message that's related to an action that they've very recently taken, you want to capitalize on that attention by optimizing all of the messages that you're sending. Triggered emails can be so incredibly effective at increasing email engagement and conversion rates. They can also help build trust and loyalty with your existing and your future customers. And they can also help with retention, but only if they're resonating with the people that you're sending them to. So check in to ensure everything's working as expected. Monitor performance at least semi-regularly, please. Respect those email recipients and adjust to their needs and their wishes based on the data you have available, based on the actions that they're taking with your brand. And then keep on testing and iterating. Well, that's all the time that we have today. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through triggered email and why we need to bring it back into the marketer's purview. And thanks to Metadata for having me and for throwing such an awesome event. This is a really great lineup. I'm active on LinkedIn and Twitter if you have additional questions or if you want to bounce ideas around. So please feel free to reach out to me. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great rest of the show.